Welcome to today's Global Connections program. I'm Bill Miller. Today we're going to take a look at our opportunities to partner the public and the private sectors to focus attention on problems such as climate change, poverty, hunger, and empowering women. My guest today is an expert on all these issues and certainly on how to develop these partnerships. My guest today is Mr. Amir Dossal. Mr. Amir Dossal is the president and CEO of the Global Partnerships Forum. Mr. Dossal is a 25-year veteran of the United Nations, and he served as executive director of the United Nations Office for Partnerships until September 2010. Amir Dossal, welcome to today's Global Connections program.
Thank you, sir. I'm honored to be here.
I appreciate you. Back again. we could have you on every other week. You have so much going on.
Privileged to be back here, sir.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you being with me. Amir, let's talk about the Global Partners Forum for a few minutes. And just exactly what is it? What's your main mission? And we'll be talking about some of your projects as we go through the program to look as to how we can do this public-private partnership.
So when I was at the UN, the last 10 years of those period was spent in building public-private partnerships. And I was privileged to be managing the Ted Turner philanthropy. And it became quite clear very quickly that it's not through grants, but it's through investments, basically, that you can make a sustainable effort and change. And that too, if you work together with others, you bring the private sector, civil society into the mix, you increase your chances of success. So after my graduation from the UN in 2010, we created the Global Partnerships Forum. And it's really a platform for change makers, innovators, entrepreneurs, and of course, public and private sectors to come together to support the UN's agenda. And we're focused on the Sustainable Development Goals. It's a huge agenda, and we really need to rally around, all of us, to support the UN.
And after your graduation, you moved into this area. You mentioned the Sustainable Development Goals. Very briefly, what are they? Not all 17 of them, but what's the concept? Because we're going to be hearing a lot more about them over the next 14 years.
Right. You know, the first time ever, the UN has put together a set of new goals, a visionary agenda, which impacts the lives of all of us, whether we live in the West or we live in developing economies, etc. It is about sustainable livelihoods. It's about better education, better health, water, sanitation, climate, ocean protection, and so on. And these 17 goals, goal 17, by the way, is threaded together with the lens of partnerships. And it's clear, member states realize that we cannot achieve sustainable livelihoods without the engagement of the private sector, civil society, academia. And we're privileged to be working in that field to develop these what we call multi-stakeholder partnerships.
Now, we've seen over the years that governmental agencies, non-governmental organizations, various service clubs such as Rotary, Lions, Kiwanis, groups like that, have been working on these problems. The private sector, to some degree, has done that, but we see, I think there's more of an acceleration of their involvement. But if someone were the CEO of a business, be it a small business, medium size, or large, what, generally speaking, are the advantages of that group, that entity, teaming up with, say, a United Nations agency or an NGO or whatever to focus on these problems?
So you mentioned Rotary, Lions Club, Kiwanis, and so on. They do great work on the ground. They mobilize civil society. At the same time, what we feel that the private sector, with its leadership role in business, industry, they can actually share their management leadership, their skills, their delivery systems, to invest in the poor. We should highlight to them what is the value proposition for them to invest in, let's say, health, education, environment, climate, water, sanitation. All of these areas lend themselves to investments. Today, what we call ODA, Overseas Development Assistance, which is what member states provide for developing countries, runs at about $150 billion. But the reality is, in order to achieve these goals in the next 15 years, we will need $2 to $3 trillion a year. And we don't have the money. It has to be capital formation. It has to be through investments. The finance sector, therefore, has a critical role to play. But they have to, they constantly say, will I get return on capital? But more importantly, will I get return off capital? So the emerging economies are now starting to say, we need the right governance systems, mechanism, transparency, accountability. So there's a lot of buzz, and I have to say the UN is actually engaged very actively in this. The Department of Economic and Social Affairs and ECOSOC, which is the Economic and Social Council, are looking at ways how they can provide that enabling environment, that new platform for multilateralism to flourish.
And we've seen over the years ago, the pharmaceutical industry really in the UN World Health Organization did not cooperate very much, but today that's a different story. We see Rotary International has teamed up with two major UN agencies, UNICEF and the UN World Health Organization, to eliminate the scourge of polio. Yeah. It's a perfect example, just a paradigm of the public-private partnership and how things can get done. But we're going to let's get into some of your projects. I think this will help our viewers better identify how they might reach out and develop some of these links and participate. Right. Now, you were just recently in London at an Engineering a Better World conference. You spoke of that. What exactly was the purpose of that?
So this is the Royal Academy of Engineering in the UK, which has its members across the world, actually. Civil engineers, structural engineers, mechanical engineers, etc. And I was honored to give the keynote speech along with the president of Mauritius there, and it was amazing. The energy in the room was breathtaking, because their primary question to us was, how can we get engaged on international development issues? How can we relate to the Sustainable Development Goals? So if you think of it, that engineers build infrastructure. And infrastructure can cover health, education, climate issues, ocean-related, everything. They have taken this idea of supporting the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development with a passion. The Royal Academy has just informed us that they want to create a global platform for engagement where engineers can share best practice and lessons learned and spur more economic growth. So they're actually creating an interactive map to capture all these projects. They also participated in Entrepreneurship Week. They kind of led that effort. And what was the first question they posed to the participants? How can entrepreneurship help drive sustainable development? So we're very excited with that buzz and momentum taking place.
And can our viewers go to your website to get more information on this?
Absolutely. I think there's a story about the speech I gave there and some background information on the Royal Academy as well. And the website is partnerships.org.
Partnerships.org, right. Yep. And not to embarrass you, but did you not get an award or some type of honorific ceremony? Was that then, or was it earlier or later?
Actually, it was earlier in the year. My alma mater, the Institute of Chartered Accountants in England and Wales. I'm one of those dull and boring chartered accountants by training. They gave me the Outstanding Achievement Award for 2016, and basically it was for building public-private partnerships, bringing governments and private sector together, and I'm very grateful for that honor. In fact, next year we are planning to host a Global Goals Forum in London at the Institute, most likely in June of next year. And the idea is very simple: bring public and private sectors together around the 17 goals, but focus them on results. We know the problems. We actually know the solutions. So what is needed now is to act.
Exactly. That is so important. And you mentioned engineers too. That's another group that have excelled in their fields. They have wonderful technical knowledge, but in the past they've just been pretty much within their silos. They've not branched out to see how we can help create a better world. They did what they did best: chemical engineers, electrical engineers, whatever, civil. But let's go to another summit. You were at a 2016 GODAN Summit, GODAN.
Yes.
What does that acronym GODAN stand for, and what came out of that summit?
Right. So that's very exciting, by the way. This is the Global Open Data on Agriculture and Nutrition. So this group, based out of the UK, supported by the US government, UK government, Kenyan government, and many others, is focused on the provision of open data for the supply chain to farmers and others in the process. You know, today data exists, but people who do not have access to the internet, do not have access to information, cannot make the right decisions. So GoDAN's mission is to provide open data around the world to encourage and improve productivity, agricultural productivity, better nutrition, and by extension, great for healthier lives. And when you think of healthier lives, a child, when she or he eats better, learns better, has a better IQ, can get a job better, and becomes a member of society. So it's a very noble mission. And we supported GoDAN's work. It was a 2-day summit, brought together 750 people around the world, experts in industry, politicians, and so on. Secretary of Agriculture was there. The Secretary of Agriculture from Kenya was present, so we were honored to have ministers. And that culminated in a closing plenary at the United Nations, where we had the Assistant Secretary General from DESA participate, Professor Sachs and others who came and spoke. And we were honored to have them there.
Now, this open data operation, are there certain portals, are there certain platforms? How would people access that? How would that get out to the rank and file person who might have an interest in it or who could put it to good use?
So that is basically the remit of GoDAN, and it's driven by our colleagues at the Department of Agriculture. So GoDAN is putting together a kind of an online platform where you can share best practice and lesson learned. I would also encourage companies and organizations to consider becoming members of GoDAN. It's very simple. The website is godan.info, GODAN.info. And there they will find a huge range of resources where they'll find it useful for their work. And by networking through that system, they will be a lot more better off.
Well, you're watching Global Connections Television, which is a privately funded, independently produced program. The opinions expressed on Global Connections are solely those of the moderator and his guest. We would invite our viewers to go to our website at www.globalconnectionstelevision.com to view previous programs. Also, if you're involved with any type of television outlet such as PBS, Community Access Television, or perhaps you're involved with a university or an educational system that has an intra-campus hookup, or if you just have a website and you have an interest in our programs, please feel free to download the programs and to share them with your family, friends, colleagues, the community, and the world at large if you would like to do so. Global Connections Television is provided as a public service, free of charge, at no cost, to help people better understand international issues and how they impact our lives. Today we're taking a look at how we can develop a stronger public-private partnership to look at problems such as poverty, climate change, hunger, and empowering women. And my guest today has been working in this area for many years. My guest today is Mr. Amir Dossal. Mr. Amir Dossal is the founder and president of the Global Partnerships Forum. Amir, we're talking about how we can team up and do a variety of things together. The one area that I've mentioned this now with sustainable development, climate change, and that type of thing, and the oceans. Oceans are absolutely critical to the life of the planet. 75% of the Earth is water, I guess, but still we think there's this vast, immense bodies, but they are so critical. Now you were involved in a 10 by 20 initiative that focused on Sustainable Development Goal 14, which focused on the oceans. What exactly was that, and why was that important?
So 10 by 20 is really about creating marine protected areas, 10% marine protected areas, by the year 2020. This is one of the clearest targets set in the Sustainable Development Goals. And we are privileged to work with the government of Italy under the leadership of Ambassador Sebastiano Cardi, who is the permanent representative of Italy to the United Nations. He's the chair of 10 by 20 initiative. And we, as in the Ocean Sanctuary Alliance, is really integral part of this process. And as you might recall, the Ocean Sanctuary Alliance was set up by my late friend, Ambassador Stuart Begg, former permanent representative of Palau to the United Nations. And I've been privileged to be part of that effort. We're very passionate about protecting the oceans and seas. We think there's a lot that can be done, because when you think of it, the ocean agenda is vast. We talk about illegal fishing, overfishing, bottom trawling issues, plastic gyres in the high seas, and so on. And many countries are coming together to say, yes, we need to work together to make that change. Mm-hmm. And in fact, we are so thrilled that the President of the UN General Assembly announced an Oceans Forum for June 2017. And that'll be very exciting, actually. And we are, of course, honored to be part of that.
Mm-hmm. And of course, our viewers can go to your website, partnerships.org.
Yes.
They can also go to un.org, or they can just Google what we're talking about, and these events will pop up, and they can take a look at them and see how they can get involved in this. You mentioned Ambassador Carty and also Ambassador Stuart Beck, both of whom have been on the show before and did excellent interviews and are on our website, so just put in a plug for them. Both delightful and very knowledgeable people, extremely knowledgeable.
And we are thrilled to be working with the Italian government. And by the way, you can see some information on 10 by 20 mm-hmm. on the Italian Permanent Mission website. And you can also see something on the OceanSanctuaryAlliance.org website.
Mm-hmm. And this, when we talk about the climate change, sustainable development, global warming, however you want to put it, the United Nations has really been in the forefront on a large part of this through its conferences over the past several years. Mm-hmm. The outgoing Secretary General, Ban Ki-moon, the 8th Secretary General of the United Nations, really made that one of his 5 major items of focus when he came in about 10 years ago to be the Secretary General of the United Nations. But the UN has really moved this discussion forward. Now, there have been a lot of partners, but really the UN, I think, stands out, and Ban Ki-moon to a large degree as 2 of the greatest proponents of focusing attention on the climate change problem and how it is probably the number one event that's going to impact all of us, all 7.4 billion people on Earth.
Right.
Have they not?
I cannot say enough about our fearless leader, Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. He brought together the Paris Agreement. He single-handedly pushed for it and achieved it. He created the Sustainable Development Goals. He's also been the champion for women's empowerment, gender equality. At the UN, if you are looking for a job, Secretary General Ban Ki-moon would say, fine, to his senior people, I'm willing to receive the short list, but I want to see at least one woman candidate on that short list. Mm-hmm. And then, by the way, you justify to me why that person cannot be selected. So he's been a huge proponent, and we are so excited about his passion, his quiet passion and deep commitment to universal values. So we wish him well, and I know he'll do well in his next phase of his life.
Mm-hmm. And of course, the incoming Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, who's the former UN High Commissioner for Refugees, is also going to be dealing with these issues, and I'm sure he will have some innovative ideas as to how to deal with them. Yeah, it was a good entree a minute ago, a good segue into women. I was going to ask you, right. It's almost as though every conversation we have, have to talk about gender equity, gender equality, empowering women. What have you been involved in lately with either some of your partners, UN Women, or private sector groups, to focus attention on the challenges confronting women in many, many areas of not just developed countries, but economically developing countries?
So we work very closely with UN Women, and we're honored to be working with them. And over the years, we've done women leadership initiatives. And once again, in September, we hosted a forum to recognize world leaders. And we recognized the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, the President of Malta, and our dear First Lady of the United Nations, Madam Ban Ki-moon, for the work they have been doing in promoting gender equality and women's empowerment. You know, it's quite clear that our species needs to do more. And it's not just the women who should be talking about it, the men who should be talking about it. That how about benefiting from a person who can be a CEO at home and a CEO at work? You and I cannot do that job, 2 jobs at once. Women can. And we've found from experience that if done right, it gives the women a platform for engagement at the highest level. We support the He for She campaign led by UN Women, Planet 50-50 by 2030 rather, is another target which we are supporting.
Could you mention a little bit about the He for She and the 50-50?
He for She
just
is
briefly.
You're right. He for She is a campaign created by UN Women to encourage men to take the leadership role to bring women into the fold. Whether it is women in the workplace, women at home, women in civil society, women in leadership roles, politicians, media, etc. There are a number of organizations which are doing great work, like the Wilson Center is doing wonderful work for women in public policy. We are focusing also our attention on training women who have reached almost senior management positions to make them feel that they can not only stay there, but take the top role as well. And it's quite clear that if we do this right, nobody will be threatened. Everybody will flourish in this process.
It is a win-win situation.
Yes, sir.
It is. And the Planet 50-50, is that what you said?
Yes.
What is that?
It's about creating equality for women by 2030 in all its forms. And I'm honored to be the Planet 50-50 champion.
Very good. Well, there are a lot of excellent programs that are underway, and we need to learn much more about them. Now, before we run out of time, let me ask you, are you going to be going back, are you doing something in relationship to the cathedral in London?
Yeah.
Or maybe you could share
Thank you.
30 seconds on that as to what's happening?
Thank you for asking. I'm so excited, actually. We're working very closely with Canterbury Cathedral on collaboration on a whole range of social issues. You know, the Anglican community in the UK and worldwide does great work in terms of philanthropy. And we've been talking to them about kind of a multi-faith platform on supporting the UN's agenda. The Archbishop of Canterbury is very committed to this cause, and under the leadership of Canterbury, we will bring together faith leaders from around the world, including Roman Catholic community, Baha'is, Hindus, Muslims, Jews, everybody. We feel that it's important to learn from each other because everybody is doing philanthropy one way or another. What we want to do is move the needle to sustainable philanthropy, what we call smart philanthropy, so that you create a situation where people do not need to come back to you with a handout. They should be able to stand on their own 2 feet. Respect is very important in this process. So we're working with the Archbishop's office, for example, and Canterbury Cathedral. The Dean of Canterbury Cathedral has been exceedingly helpful in engaging us on these issues. We're also working with the Institute of Chartered Accountants, Chatham House, and many other organizations who are committed to the cause.
Well, Amir, you've been involved in this field for over 25 years. You've been working with CEOs of large corporations, medium-sized businesses. How are it seems we're moving forward in this area. The people are developing new mindsets, or developing new levels of involvement. They're really becoming more cognizant of the problems that are out there. Do you feel that that's happening when you think back 25 years ago, where you were at that point to where you are today?
Oh, definitely. We've seen that change, a sea change taking place. I think one of the most important things that is happening is people are starting to appreciate the other side's culture. Corporate cultures are very different. At the UN is very different to a government, to a multinational corporation, to a small company, a foundation, academic institution, and so on. And providing we can answer the question for the other side, what's in it for me? I think we increase our chances of success.
That's right. That's the question everybody asks. What's in it for me? Be it internal, something we internalize ourselves,
Yes,
it's
sir.
personal, but we all have to get something out of it. But helping to create a better world is also a very good reason for being involved and to lend a hand and to really confront these issues and to realize that we all have a place that we can move forward and to play a role in helping to create this better world. And it's absolutely critical that we get involved. And there are many ways that we can do it, but we just have to determine how we want to do it ourselves. But Amir Dossal, I want to thank you so very much for a very interesting and a very informative program.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Bill Miller. Thank you for joining us today on Global Connections Television.